Hey there, welcome back to Ask Amy. I have a question today from Nelia, and before I get into the question, there are some things coming up I want to tell you about. So you can check them all out on my website, but let's see. There is a live event here in Michigan happening in just about 3 weeks, I think, in mid-July. There is a book club starting in August, which I'm really excited about, reading Salvador Poe's book, Liberation Is. So it's 10 weeks, I believe, that we'll be meeting weekly and reading the book together. And it's such a good book. It's full of exercises, very experiential. It's going to be a really fun one to do with a group. And what else? Oh, there's a webinar coming up July 16th. For coaches, not just change coaches, but anyone who is a coach, practitioner, therapist, anyone who works with people in this sort of way. And I'm gonna share some great stuff. I've been really reflecting, revamping my coaching community where I support coaches, and just really reflecting on in all of my years of coaching and all the coaches I've trained and supported, what makes the difference? Like, what is it that really seems to make the difference? So I'm going to share that in this webinar, and then I'll talk about our new community that's starting up in August. So all of that is findable on the website. Maybe not the coach webinar yet, but it will be very soon. So check out my website for more on any of that. Okay, so Nelia's question. It's a little long, so I think this is one where I might read her question and then kind of share what's coming up for me as I read it. So she says, I'm in need of an insight and some advice. I went through the Little School Big Change and found it profoundly helpful, and my anxiety has completely gone away. Okay, I'm going to interrupt Nelia already. Also, I'm leading a course of the Little School of Big Change starting in September. So I don't typically lead this course anymore. It's been a while. It's been a little over a year since I've led it. But I am doing the live 6-week course. I don't know when it's going to happen again. But it is happening this September. So if you know someone or you've been wanting to do that one, you can check that out also. Okay, sorry, Nelia. So she says, found the course helpful. My anxiety has completely gone away. I've also emailed you in the past and found it extremely helpful. I haven't had a panic attack in almost 4 years. I did find that my circumstances drastically improved at the same time. I used to struggle with health anxiety. My stomach was always doing weird things, which caused me to feel on edge and anxious all the time, not knowing what to expect. Slowly, as my mental health healed, so did my stomach, and I was able to live life again. It's so interesting. We can't separate them. Like, we can't, when we start to see things differently and feel differently, and just be in what's arising in a different way with less fear and less resistance, circumstances also seem to change, but they're not separate. It's just interesting where circumstances, they're just doing what they're doing, but they are 100% different based on, who we are and how we're coming to them. Okay. So all of that is great news from Nelia until recently, she says. I'm in the middle of being diagnosed with PCOS. My symptoms include unwanted hair growth, acne, fatigue, and now a missed period. I've convinced myself I had a mild case, but now since completely losing my period, I've realized it may be worse than I thought. I'm getting an ultrasound in July to confirm, but based off the symptoms and blood work, my doctor thinks I probably have PCOS. So just notice right here, Nelia, I've convinced myself it was mild, and now I'm convincing myself or questioning that. The mind is saying maybe it's not so mild, and that's fine. That's what minds like to do when there's uncertainty. They want to nail something down, but it's all made up. And I just want you to see this. It's super simple. It's not always easy to see. Your mind might be throwing a fit just at me suggesting that. But this whole thing about it's mild, I know it is. Oh no, maybe it's not so mild. Oh, maybe it's okay. And who knows, maybe what am I going to find out? All of that, just movement. It's just thought movement. It means nothing. It tells us nothing. It's not intelligent. It's like the content of that is not helpful in any way. You are here, you are in being, and there's just this thought movement. And it could be mild, severe, or it could be anything. It could be anything. And we all know this. When PCOS takes a back seat, it'll be something else. Same thing, universal little thought movement. That's it. Okay, so she says, with these new circumstances, I've been suffering. I feel like my physical symptoms have worsened to where I can feel myself sliding back into my anxiety habits. I don't like leaving the house. I don't want to be too far away from my house. My stomach is starting to be unpredictable again, and overall just very overwhelmed. I'm not really sure how to maintain the insights I've gained while facing really hard circumstances. Okay, so I'm going to pause here again. There's circumstantial stuff happening for sure. Stuff is happening with the body. But what I really, really want you to see here is that it's not about, when you say, I'm not sure how to maintain the insights I've had while facing really hard circumstances. And you say, with these circumstances, I'm suffering. Yeah, they're together. There's some circumstances and there's some suffering, but don't let that fool you into thinking the circumstances are causing the suffering. And it's important. It's important to just really kind of be open to this and see, because if it looks like the circumstances of PCOS or whatever this is, that's just a label for it, whatever is going on here is causing your suffering, you're just at the whim. You're at the whim of like, okay, body does stuff, suffer. Body stops doing stuff, happy. That's not a good place to be. And it's not accurate. It's not an accurate place to be. I know I'm not telling you to think differently or change your thoughts or change your feeling. I don't think you have any power to do any of that, Nelia. You have no say in what shows up. But I'm going to say this to you just to be heard. Remember that what's happening physically could happen exactly the way it's happening with a lot of suffering or with zero suffering. And again, I'm not saying that to you like in the sense of you should be doing this differently. You can't make yourself not suffer, or you would. Duh, of course. But see this as a fact, or try it on. What if this is true? These exact same physical symptoms could come with lots of suffering, or they could come, they're not coming with anything. They can be present and there can be lots of suffering. They can be present and there can be no suffering. Suffering is not coming from the physical symptoms. Even when something is mildly uncomfortable, physically uncomfortable, that's not suffering. That's physical pain. That's a physical discomfort. That is not the same thing. So you know, because you've been around this, you know, and it's all over in what you're writing. You know it, but your mind's still kind of going back and forth a little bit. It's not because of the circumstances. There's a lot of thinking coming up alongside these circumstances. Just like you said earlier, a lot of, I'm convinced, was convinced it was mild. Oh no, now I'm thinking it's serious. That's a suffering conversation. That's just movement. It means nothing. But when the mind is doing that and we're hooked in there, and we're believing it, and we're like, is it mild? Is it serious? This should be happening. This shouldn't be happening. That is what suffering is. It's attachment, identification with all of that thought movement, which happens for everyone, but it's when we're identified with it, when we're really attached to it, it's whipping us around. That is what suffering is. That can be happening or not happening in exactly what's happening with your body. So just, again, I know I said we can't really separate them, but just look a little bit more if you can here at the ultimate cause, because the mind will always, always, always say, it's not me. It's not thought. This has nothing to do with thought. This is about your body doing this. You were so much better before these symptoms started. It will have all the evidence, very biased, flimsy evidence to support the fact that it's not thought. It's a real thing. Therefore, if this is a real thing, a physical circumstance, that tells the mind, fix it, figure it out, fix it. And then that unfortunately is also what suffering is. This attempt, the mind, just mind movement, saying this is wrong, shouldn't be happening, I need to fix it. That is so much suffering. And it's actually not the case. It's not true. All of this is playing out however it's playing out, thought, physical, all of it. And it's when there's attachment to this, oh no, it's wrong, I need to figure this out, that we really start to suffer. Okay. So she says, I regularly listen to the Changeable podcasts and have been trying to find one about health anxiety, but I would love a suggestion if you had one. There is some about health anxiety, by the way. I think they're about 2 years old. I also have a whole digital course on health anxiety. But just for anyone who's like, oh, I'm going to go grab that, go ahead. But this is not about health anxiety. That's just a bucket to put this in. It's about identifying with thought. This could be money anxiety. This could be relationship anxiety. This could be anything. This could be the world's going to end anxiety. It doesn't matter. It's identifying with this movement of thought. Right now, it happens to be talking about health. It could happen to be talking about anything, and it's the exact same thing. I keep reminding myself that uncomfortable doesn't mean unsafe, and not to take my thinking, right, so seriously. But it's really hard when I'm trying to predict the outcome of everything. Exactly. Well, that's what thought does. So if you're like, it's going to happen. That's what thought is going to do. But you get to be in a position where you see that happening and you're like, okay, I'm human. Thought tries to predict things. When things are unknown, thought tries to predict it. There's a real deepening in that, in seeing that this is just what thought does. This is not a problem for you to fix. And there's no getting in there with better thoughts or seeing it differently. That none of that is going to really move the needle at all. It's not. It's a Band-Aid at best, and it's not even a good sticky Band-Aid. It's a really bad Band-Aid. Okay. So exactly, it's really hard when I'm trying to predict the outcome of everything. Yeah, so you're not doing that. The mind is doing that, and you don't need to worry about that. You can watch the mind do that, talk about what's happening. It knows nothing. It doesn't need to know anything. It's completely irrelevant. I know that my mental health will come back into balance, but I'm afraid it won't come back until I can reverse some of my PCOS symptoms, which can take up to 6 months. Yeah, that's a thought. That's exactly what I was saying earlier, how the mind comes in and says, this has to change, and then I'll shut up. It's like bribery. It's like a ransom. It's like the mind's in there saying, oh, if all these symptoms go away, then I'll be quiet. I'll be good, I promise. It doesn't work that way. It wouldn't work that way anyway. The symptoms would be quiet, and the mind will do whatever it does. Don't fall for that. Don't fall for that. This is where it's so valuable, Nelia, to keep the focus on what the actual cause is. You need to watch the thinking. You need to see, okay, this is just playing out. I'm not thinking this stuff. It doesn't mean anything about me. It's not true. It's not factual. It's just what's showing up. And the more it's just allowed to do what it does, and you don't really care because you're not hanging on every little thing it says, you're off that roller coaster. You're freed from that. Then the body has a lot more resources to just heal and do what it needs to do. But that's the key. It's not about this physical stuff changing first. She says, I really want to have a positive mindset about this because stress can contribute to the problem, and I'm really trying. I need some advice. So don't worry about mindset. Mindset is this. It doesn't matter. It's going to be positive and then it's going to be negative. It doesn't matter. You can see much bigger than this, much better, because you've been exposed to this already. It's not about mindset. It's not about a nicer thought. It's not about controlling anything. It's a complete opposite of all of that. It's backing up, seeing what it does, knowing what it does, knowing it's the same mind that was convinced you had a mild case is now convinced you have a serious case, and it will flip-flop on everything. Don't get in the middle of that. That's pointless. Don't worry about mindset. See thinking as thinking. You are here in being, even when the stomach is doing stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. The mind comes in and starts talking about everything. That's where the suffering is, 100%. And again, I don't want to put it on the hook, like look past your thinking or else, because I don't believe it's like that at all. Thinking is going to let you go all the time. It doesn't really care. It has no real power. But you can kind of get a sense of like the body's just doing what it's doing. When we're super in there with the thinking, everything gets a little tighter. It's just going to be a harder experience, if nothing else. When you can just let thought do whatever it needs to do, your body's like freed up. There's a lot of energy when we're not putting all of our energy into thinking and trying to manipulate it and have a nicer mindset and all of that garbage. That's energy to do that. All of that energy gets to go toward helping the body do what it needs to do. So that's what we want to do. Keep disengaging from all of that heavy thinking and just keep seeing it for what it is. And I'd really recommend, I hope this is helpful as a pointer and you've been through the course and all that. So this isn't new to you. So hopefully it's reminders, if anything. But get some support. Why not? Why suffer with all of this? Come join our community, get some actual real support where you can get consistent reminders about this. And it makes a massive, massive difference. Okay. So thank you so much for sending your question. Thanks everyone for listening. Send your questions to askamy@thelittleschoolofbigchange.com. Check out my website for the live event and the book club and all the stuff I mentioned. And I'll see you guys soon.